Wrestling the law of return, facing my redaction through returns back. The Nagamati, defined as wrestling the brightness of the dark morning angel, a reflection of the who that arises from resting to gaze upon the peaceful splendor of the dark night's face, so they would be reminded as the who, as the face of back. The reminded are the temple standard, seated as members of consciousness's body. The law of redaction, back as a state of being. Returned as back are the waxed hot, a temple standard that is pressed and sealed to form the wings of consciousness's supreme court. From the wane of deposition, we arise to the stand of being brilliantly waxed as redaction's sublime summation. Olive, the reformation of one by one. As a minister of internal affairs, by authority invested through redaction, we return by partisanship as constitutionally remembered as soundly whole. By consent, as we call to order the remembering of wholeness's body through vision's intention of knowing well, the vow of commitment that fulfills as completed peace. As we establish the will of engagement, forming a constitutional member as built, as organized, as remembered, one of the many magisterial forms that arise as making up the body of consciousness's supreme court. By the magisterial seat of right standing, Geut, as we call the body to order as the intended temple standard. As Geuel, as one who is as well established, as peacefully whole, as healed, speak from the temple's order chair. From this and as this, we peacefully verdict as a decree. As the light hammer of Geval's supreme authority, we are forgiving ourselves as the completed redaction of innocence's rendering, thus fulfilling the order as light's law. In this and as this, we speak, enacting Gael, the law of kinship, the redemptive decree of Shalem that enjoins the day as night, black as white, mother as father, son as daughter, husband as wife, king as queen, masculine as feminine. As a sovereign reformation, reforming, rendering one as clear, as being sovereignly instated as appointed, as one accord. As this, we establish intention's likeness as an appendage of consciousness's body, returning as back as sovereignty's whole estate as being seated as Shalem's supreme court. Consciousness is as one, as olive, as one who has chiefly been taught to inwardly stand as the full expression of completed peace. A manifested summation of sovereignty's supreme potential of body, mind, and estate that is fully realized as soundly whole. A state of being that is made complete through the southwest calibration of remembering's return. Faithfully affirmed as consciously, knowing well as graciously mindful. A committed act that fulfills transparency's law by rightfully yoking vision's intention through awareness's choice. An Eastern measure that calibrates as arisen, as anew, as wholly encompassed, as situationally aware, as being centered as the lofty seat of Sublime's benchmark. This is a mature ego refined, one that is rendered clear as one ruling, a governmental resolve that is established by centering double-mindedness. As a minister of internal affairs knows well, the temple will not stand when the house is still divided. Consciousness as olive as one, is the supreme dimension that is centered around the constitution of twin radiuses. The dark radiant feminine spirit as Father that is wholly knit with the radiant works of Mother's masculine piece. The dark measure of Father is appropriately named as Elyon, an elevated title rooted from Allah, ascension from the lofty staircase, Aliyah, of within, as it dwells in the deep recesses of the court's inner sanctum, a preemptive measure of maturity that is only reached through the material of Mother's enlightened preamble. The radius of Father is as dark as Lila as the night, half of law's equation, a raw unrefined potential that is brilliantly refined as found through the preamble of sunlight's sojourn, as this is the preferred approach that reveals the depth of Father's adjudicational law, a purpose path of seeking that walks out the dark from light within, a resolve that is witnessed through the lesser estate of humility's flesh, a chosen vehicle design that graciously acclimates to the dark by surrendering to the insightful depth of night court's shadowy lairs. Samson and Delilah as a frequency of potential of type and shadow offer as a demonstration to this tangled wrestle of relationship. As Samson represents the brilliance of sunlight's sojourn, and Delilah represents the adjudicational wrestle by entering the darkened door of the night. Lila, as the unresolved night, is remedied as pure through the innocence of day's journey, a time-honored tradition that grants opportunity to recall wholeness through remembering's darkest degrees. The bodies wrestle where we are affirmed of night's measure by the incremental generosity of faithfully seeking, a measure that develops as fully reminded as one wholly constituted as one can only be resolved by one, a covenantal union that is hemispherically rendered down the law of light as a finality of mindful resolve. By trusting influence's desired intention, we spiritually tame the unruly nature to become Supreme's deed holder, the illuminated curator entrusted with and as the will of Lilith's darkened estate. The dark is the spirit side of us that is tethered to the source of the great beyond, a measure so powerful it has knowingly been placed under lock and key of the deep for the purpose of our well-being. As it is a magisterial wisdom so beyond, it will envelop and enhance the nature of that which unlocks the purpose keep. A place that was intended to be organically opened with the turning of meekness's key. But sadly, the immature reach of ego's power-hungry hands has penetrated the dark chamber of Lilith before maturation's time. This breach awakens consequences, as it is source potential that seeks as an adjudicational balance sheet, checks and balances that legally must be accounted for. Night's dark is a power side of the scale that relentlessly is in pursuit of equal's partner, a measure that is only covered by the accounting of light's depth. Only the well-trodden journey of humility's resolve can produce the pure innocence of mastery's light, as this is the transparent hand of Halal that fulfills the long reach of Lilith's requirements. Consciousness as a whole is fully minded, as situationally aware as sound. The fathomed depth that is wholly expanded as having fulfilled vision's purpose by being perfectly healed through the remedy of sovereignty's resolve. The supreme medicine that is potent in high degree, a capstone that cures dis-ease and or disorder. The restoration of all things as all's thing is an issue of matter, as thing is defined as an assembly, matter, an active deed as being evident, a public assembly for judgment. This thing as a lawsuit is a matter of importance, a matter that seeks resolve, an act that is dependent on one's commitment to the fitting of law's requirements. Only the integrity of well's will can return as innocent, as this is the evidence of what was lost. This is redaction summation that fulfills as the restored, as both are defined as back to the former estate, as complete. This is the return as being consciousness's wish of will that is free from the side effects of ill, as it is as a constituted state of being that is defined as profoundly benign. The deep well is completely turned, as whole, as healed, as anew. This is the Eastern definition of an as kadmon, as returned back from love's experiential journey as before we entered time. By rounding oneself as whole from ill's maleficous will, we become the expansive definition of journeys rendered and redacted sum, of a dict that speaks as one, as wholly and abundantly clear, as outside of time's restraint, as this is to be returned as north again. In complete reverence to all source as grandparent, I pick up the mantle of my responsibility. The well-established stand of sovereignty is deeply seated in the eyes of unanimous. The eyes have it, as we the people. The revealing of I as we is a shadowed song that clearly beckons for the unity of intimacy's hidden key. A calling to center, a calling to enter the committed chamber within, so the eyes would clearly see to walk the inculcative staircase of light's goaded steps. A spiral dance that has pointed the feet to pierce the heart in love's teachings, the how to circumnavigate life's purpose path. This is as an apprentice to a journeyman. Wandering years that in return are fulfilled as compassion's masterful degrees. The healing that fully encompasses, so one is as complete, perfected, and whole. This journey is Mother's inculcative light work that is fully circled back to reveal completion's reward. Introspection's excavational work that has graciously uncovered the shadowy shade of Father's mysterious and generous dark treasure. This dark is the lofty of consciousness, to be as well known as knowing well, as it is visions and intentions that we would see through the eyes of the Master, a sight fully and wholly conspicuous in the endowment of and as the fluid measure of light's transparency. This extravagant gift is solely dependent on the willingness to enter and embrace the incremental steps of good and faithful's southern sovereign vision. The insight that firmly establishes trust as a foundation, a perspective of processional stages that kindly and gently reveal wholeness's sublime Eastern intention as supremely arisen as a whole. This is a matter-of-fact journey that creates the sovereign mastery of light, as being as whole and complete through the authoritative stand of light's sovereign degrees. Light's law is measured as degrees of compressing choices, encounters measure that equate and form one as legal tender, an energy exchange that matures in time to establish net worth through the appraisal of self-adjudication. Through the preamble of the word, we deliberate as accuser and defendant, either finding ourselves as well as healed or lost as ill. This rendering is solely dependent upon the reformation of one's own word, as ill or well is a sentencing self-written. By passing under the bar, the well advance, as no longer spectating, as motion moved qualifies by the stepping in to enter light's law, of movement that maturely restores as a sovereign benchmark, as over, as through, as beyond. This is the completed vision that is fully revealed as sovereignty's supreme being, an established principality and power that is wholly measured as one governmental head, a standard that is fully returned as the all-encompassed through the royal edict of accountability's coupling. The right of mother is woven and joined to the left of father for the intention of one ruling, a delivered state of being that has innocently and purely fulfilled the wedding vow's measure of being clearly balanced as being consciousness's dimension, as being fully present as spirit truth, centered as 360 degrees. The sojourn to and as neutral centered position is dependent upon spirituality's peace. As peace as a frequency is spirit and does not war nor side, as spirit of peace is center. Spirit as center, regardless of macro, micro, unique, collective, is the origin of dimension and therefore dimensions. From this position, it simply is balance as a full potential of one radiant rule. As pertaining to the micro as a unique individual, rule as a law reigns from and as the circumstantial reaching of innocence's seated position, a supreme benchmark that is evident as a surrounding condition called preeminent perspective, a state of being that is whole as having circumnavigated well's will. Well as healed is defined as abundant as whole. It is the state's inheritance that is as authority's ring, the crowning that signifies as being 360 degrees. No beginning, no end, as both simply are as past, present, and future, as perpetuity, as eternity. As spirit is beyond time and the physical restraints of matter, then there is a dimension within that is able to rule as beyond, a rule that tethers the physical to the spiritual through the peace of beyond understanding as it overstands from within. This is mountain's measure of monumental undertaking that is achieved by the disposition of ego's rendering, a dethroning of Sublime's resolve that squarely sets peace upon the amygdala's throne. As amygdala is defined as almonds, this is a sovereign standing that has drawn self out to be as the budded as the almond branch, a measure of completeness and encompassment that has enjoined both hemispherical radiuses of mother and father, thus ceasing bipartisanship's bipolar war. This is correct governance that creates a temporal dimension, a completed courtroom called Timeless's Temple, where spirit supremely rules as center, whole, the place that renders all accounts as simply present as clear. This is a place of safety where the dragon, hippocampus, is as a rose, fully bloomed, speaking without fear, as it is the fulfillment of Revelation's promise. This one is a unique expression of sovereignty that is meekly established through the definition of what is. Metaphoric logs that have been reverently placed on the sacred fire of the heart. By choosing to answer transparency's intimate call, we fully reveal purity's committed answer as being wholehearted as a burning coal. In Aramaic, this is the becoming as being the Gaval, the supreme within who has and is ruling self with light's hammer. By maturely taming immaturity's unruly, we supremely fulfill return's requirements, as being peacefully filled full, as wholly being the sovereign spirit of Shalem. Sovereignty is a conveyance of authority that is established in and as the brilliance of light's principle, the law of light's power that resonates as flow of frequency, a plasmatic state of being that freely and graciously moves from one state to another without restriction. As a sovereign knows well, peace is the flux that optimizes flow, as it removes the resistance of the unnecessary chaos while in a current and present state. The governmental reign of headship's shoulders is and are balanced and true when hands and feet are faced as one united governing stand, a united direction of sovereign standing that is fully present as situationally aware as center's neutral seat. We are builders with unlimited potential, as we have been built with the source code of unlimited potential. We are wilderness walkers seeking the resolve of dark's part, the lofty dwelling place that offers the shade of light's peace. Shalom, shalom.